Hello, my fellow coder. Welcome back to this next lesson in our FreshVotes series. In the previous lesson, we were able to create the new database schema, which was great. So it was, some hiccups, but we got it done. So let's change this from create to update now, because we don't want to drop our database anymore. We only want to have it update itself with any future changes. So let's assume, I'm assuming it's going to boot up correctly. Let's make sure it does. Looks like it's okay. Cool. So our database schema is intact and it's working. Now, like I said in the previous video, we need to actually test to see if it's going to work in the UI. So if I go to localhost 8080 and say log in, I'm not going to be able to log in because I'm going to have to create my account first because I dropped the database, right? So if I say ASDF, and log in, it's going to say no. So I need to create an account. I forget if this works or not. I think it does. Trevor, create account. Okay, ASDF, log in. Okay, so that's good. And then I need to actually create a product. Product name can be, test product number one, save. Cool. Was that supposed to bring me back? Was there an error? No. If I go back to dashboard, oh, there it is. Okay. So if I say edit, that goes in here. Okay. View feature requests. There are none, so I could create a feature request. Feature request number one. Why don't you do some better things? Save. Cool. We have feature request and comments. So there's no comments yet. Okay. So we haven't yet implemented the UI, which is what I gathered from the previous video at the end when I hazarded a guess that the UI has not been constructed yet. So let's construct the UI to the best of our ability. So we have we're on probably the feature.html page is what I'm going to guess. I haven't looked at this code in a little while. I've been busy. There we go, feature.html. I think this is the one, right? It says title and description, etc., and then comments is here. So it is iterating through the comments and putting them out on the screen, but it's not allowing us to leave a comment. So how do we do this? Well, we're going to have an input button or form of some type. We'll make this a text area. Input type equals text area. Oh, right, no, that's not how you do it. You just say text area. That's how long it's been since I've used a text area. And then, so there's that. And if I refresh, you'll see there's a text area. Okay, but now we need to make it look a little bit better with Bootstrap. So get bootstrap.com. Let's see, text area. Components, forms. What's reboot forms? Okay. Pre-formatted text. What is this? Reboot. A collection of element-specific CSS changes in a single file. Kickstart Bootstrap to provide elegant, consistent, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, I think that's probably like some sort of like tutorial on how to get started quickly. Forms and validation. Oh, I see. Text area. So this text area looks better in that it's spanning the whole width of the screen. So here's the code that they were using. Class MB3. Let's just look at forms. I'm so used to forms. Do they have a text area here? They do. Form controls. There we go. That's what I want. Show me the text area. Here we go. Form group. This is what I'm used to. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm going to copy paste. I know I'm going fast here, but we talked about this stuff before with form group and everything. Oh, I already had a text area up here. That's funny. I could have just used that code. Oh, Trevor. Anyway, form group, example text area, blah, blah, blah. So if I save that and refresh over here, beautiful. Okay. So, you'd have this say, leave a comment below, right? So leave a comment below. Maybe we could add a bit of margin to this. margin top, maybe 1.5 ems to give it some spacing. I don't know. Sure, why not? And then the form control area. Okay, so this now needs to be tied into this text area needs to be tied into something so that when we submit the form, it does something. So we have a form already up here that we had created, and this posted to itself. Oh yeah, with a CSRF token. I need to remember to do that. And this is for changes to the feature. And I think I talked about this before. There's this comments section is sort of separate from a feature section in that unless you own the feature, and I think I've done this before. I think I already did this functionality. If you don't own the feature, it won't allow you to edit up here. So this should absolutely be a separate form because this is sort of separate functionality, right? So I believe, I'm trying to think, should I have wrap this in a form? Obviously, yes, we absolutely need to wrap this in a form. That's first and foremost. But what should this form do? So this form should post, and it's creating a comment, right? We're creating a comment. So this should post to that relates to comments. At least I would imagine it should. Let me think. Yes, it should post to... Yes, it should post to the comment endpoint, because that's just the way it should work, but it will redirect back to this URL. So you shouldn't... So it's going to post to something like, features/feature ID / comments / and then whatever the comment ID is where we're going to post. But when we finish the post on the back end and create the comment, it should redirect back to the original query, right? Okay, I like that. That makes sense. That's a very common design for what we're talking about. So let's do that. So we have a feature controller. I still feel like this is sort of tied into a feature though. Like we could create a comment controller. Should we do that? I mean, maybe. Yeah, whatever. Let's just create a comment controller. I was trying to be lazy and not create a whole nother class, but whatever. Comment controller. Let's do it. So the comment controller will have a request mapping situation where the feature had this. I'm going to sneeze soon. No? Yes? Am I sneezing? Whew, sorry about that. Controller request mapping. So we sort of mimic this one, right? Features. Only this one's going to have an actual feature ID because a comment should always be tied into a feature. At least I think it should. And then /comments, right? That's sort of the base URL that we're working with. And then we'll have a get. Well, do we need a get mapping? I guess we need a get mapping for all comments. That's a valuable thing to have. Public. Although I feel like this should almost be a REST situation where because we're never going to actually go to this endpoint specifically. We're just going to call this endpoint to get the data. Like, is there going to be a view that represents a comment controller? Like, the view, this is kind of an interesting situation because the view is right here. The view is sort of embedded into a feature. Would we ever want to have a view where we're just looking at the comments alone? I mean, we could, but it's not hugely useful, right? So the reason why I'm talking about this is I don't believe that the get mapping here. I think we could have this as a response body where this endpoint that we're calling the get mapping for products, blah 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 blah, all the way to comments. The purpose of it is not to render a view; it's to return data, right? We're going to return not a view but a list of comments, right? That's essentially what we're doing here. We're saying, give me all the comments for this feature ID, right? And this could be like get comments. Yeah. That's sort of the way I see it. List, get comments. What's the problem? Oh yeah, it needs a return statement. Oh. Allergies, ladies and gentlemen. They're a pain. It makes my nose itchy. So yeah, I think that's what I would do is make this into a response body so that it actually it doesn't return a view. It returns the comments themselves, which is fine. That's cool. But then we will also need a repository to get the comments, right? So we need to create a repository. Interface, comment, repository, and the backing object here will extends JPA repository, and the object that backs it is comment. And I think we have a long as the ID. The comment ID is a long. So that will allow us to get to wire in auto-wired public comment repository. Comment repo. And this allows us to just say comment repo dot find all by, oh, it's going to be find by feature ID. Right? And we'll pass in a feature ID like so. Oh, and then we need a feature ID. So this guy will bring in, what's it called? Oh, path variable? Yes. Path variable. Long feature ID, because that's coming right here. So we're going to grab that value from the URL when it's passed in, right? We're doing a get mapping, so it's as part of, remember, feature/feature ID, there's a 1 here. So we're going to pull that 1 out of the URL and plug it into the Java side. This will populate with the actual value, which we can then pass to our find by feature ID, because we define by feature ID. There we go. So now, if all goes well, we should be able to hit this endpoint. So this is where I'm going to do something a little bit, well, you know what, I'll just paste this. I'll paste this in here. Comments / well, comments, right? Oh, I need to log in. Boom. So you can't really tell because there's nothing on the screen, but this actually is returning JSON data, and my Firefox browsers picked up the fact that it's returning a JSON object. It's just an empty JSON object, so there's nothing to show. But if I were to manually insert a comment, so if I said insert into comment, oh yeah, I need to close my insert into comment. Created date, text, comment, ID, feature ID, user ID, values. What's today? 2019-08-29. We'll just do that. Text is test comment. Comment ID, it doesn't have a comment ID, right? Because it's going to be the parent level. Feature ID is going to be 1. User ID, I assume, is 1. Let me say select star from users. No database selected. Oh, so I didn't have my FreshVotes selected, so you double click on it, and then it gets bolded, and then you can, yeah. So user ID 1, cool. So let's insert that comment, okay? And then let's refresh this page. Whoa! So here's where there's probably an exception that it's still transferring data. So there we go. Now we had a Stack Overflow probably is what happened there. Yeah, so Stack Overflow. Oh, interesting. That what it was Stack Overflow. So the reason why that happened was because there's it had trouble figuring out all of the relationships. So let me turn this into I just sort of extract this as a local variable, and I want to do a system out on that guy. and I'm going to stop the server, and I'm going to put a breakpoint in there and start the server in debug mode. Just to make sure that what we see is accurate from the... Oh yeah, I need to log in. So I'm logging in, refreshing the page. When I refresh the page, it's going to hit this endpoint. So what I want to look at is the find by feature ID. So yes, so we have one comment that has a empty list of comments and a feature. So here's the problem, right? It has a feature. So this looks great. This is one comment. It loaded correctly from the database. I'm very happy with this. The problem is the feature has a list of comments, which has one comment, which has a feature, which has a list of comments, which has one comment, which has a feature, which has a list of comments, which has a comment. So this is literally just a bi-directional relationship, and it just keeps going and going and going. When I send that data back to the front end, it couldn't handle it, right? Because it's sort of an infinite relationship. So there is, I believe, a way to do this, to fix this. And I think, so you go to the feature guy, the get method, or if you're using instance variables, you put it at the top, but I put my annotations at the getter level. There's a way to do a JSON ignore properties, or JSON ignore. I think I say JSON ignore. Is there anything that we need to pass into this? No, just JSON ignore. So we're saying ignore the feature. Okay, which might not be helpful, entirely helpful. So that's one way to do that. And then we could say, because the same thing might happen to the user. I'm not sure. We might have the same problem with the user, because a user has features, and the feature has comments, and then we go back into the same cycle, right? Feature, comment, feature, comment, feature, comment. So the same thing with user is going to have a problem. We're going to have to JSON ignore the user, which might not be good for our front end, but maybe it is. Maybe that's okay, because we don't need to know that information. Let me refresh the page. It's going to ask me to log in. It's going to hit my breakpoint. Let's see what we have in here. It'll still have the data, so the data is still going to be there. It's still going to have a feature, so that's good, right? It still has all the same stuff, but what's not going to happen is, hopefully, when we send it to the front end, it's not going to be in the infinite loop. There you go. So basically what we see here is we see the ID, we see the text, and it has no list of comments associated with it. Cool. The reference back to itself is null, which I guess is okay, and then we have a created date. So in terms of data, that looks good to me, right? Let's do one more comment where we have a nested comment. So insert into comment, create date, blah, blah, blah. Let's say that this was also created on whatever, but let's make this, I don't know, 12 noon or something. Or I'll make it like 8 a.m. or 8. Come on now. 8 a.m. Test comment number 2. So the parent comment ID is going to be 1, I assume. Let me select star from comments. Yeah, so the ID is 1. So the parent ID is 1. Feature ID is 1. User ID is 1. Okay, so now we have a comment that has a nested situation. So let's refresh this. And I guess we can... Let me get rid of this breakpoint. So we have 2 comments. Cool. Okay, so it didn't like that, right? It had that same infinite loop situation. Yeah, probably because of the same situation with the... What would I want to nullify? I want the list, but I don't want... Maybe I don't want the original comment. I might have to JSON ignore this one as well. And this is where JSON ignore might be too much, like in terms of it's getting rid of too much data, because some of it I might actually want to keep. But let's log in again and refresh the page and see. Okay, cool. So now we have... Yeah, so we have the first comment, which has a list of comments, which points to ID 2, which is fantastic. But then we also have just comment ID 2. Right? So there's going to be some stuff here on the front end that we're going to have to... Because this comment ID 2 appears twice in this list. Right? So that's a little bit misleading. So we're gonna have to massage that data. But as you can see, it displays stuff on the screen as we would expect it. That looks okay. And then just for the sake of completion, let's put in another test comment 3. Let's make it at 8:01 a.m. with the same parent. So now we have 2 that are in the list. Good. So that's not great that they appear again. I would have preferred to just see this, but I know why they're appearing again, because they're being found. And anyway. And then let's also put in another comment where we don't have a parent. So, and we'll make this 8:02. And this is comment number 4. And there is no parent, which is right here, I think, right? Yeah, after the text is comment ID, so there's no parent. So we'll have one as test comment number 4, which doesn't belong to, yeah. So that looks okay. Cool. So now what we'll do is in the next video, we're going to actually use this data that we get on the front end here, and we're going to try to massage the data such that it appears nicely in our UI. Right, so there's got to be a way that we can look at this and massage it such that it appears nicely in our UI. Okay, and the first thing that comes to mind is something along the lines of IDs, the unique IDs. If we've already looked at it, then we shouldn't look at it again, right? So if we've processed it once, don't process it again. That's sort of what I'm thinking. And there might be a better way to do that with the JSON ignore. There might be ways to make it look at primary key. So maybe we should do some research on that, because there might just be, instead of finagling it on the back end and forcing it, taking a data set and forcing it into a way that should work, there might just be JSON might already have a way to do this for us. I say JSON, this comes from Jackson, Faster XML Jackson. So Faster XML Jackson library, which supplies the JSON ignore annotation, might have solved this problem already. So let's take a look maybe first there to see if there's a way to say, hey, once we've seen this primary key once already, don't look at it again. Maybe there's a way to do that. So we'll have a look at that. Let's Google that first. And if there's no way to do that, then we can always do it ourselves, because we know how to code, right? Cool. So looking forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Hopefully you learned a lot in this one. Until then, happy learning, take care of yourself, and bye for now.